Hello there and welcome back to another Star Wars What If reaction. Today we're reacting to What If Luke time traveled to expose Palpatine to the Jedi, created by Fantasy Folklore. Be sure to check him out, links in the description, and I cannot wait to see what he came up with for this Star Wars What If. Let's jump right in.
What if Luke Skywalker time traveled to expose Palpatine to the Jedi?
Let's go, let's do it.
Let's start the story a couple of years after Return of the Jedi. Luke spends his time researching the Jedi Order, learning everything he could about the Order's history, as he knew he'd been tasked with creating the new Jedi Order, and must learn from the mistakes of the past. He struggled with the fact that the previous Jedi Order, 10,000 strong, at the height of their power, allowed themselves to be so easily defeated by Darth Sidious, and must ensure this never happened again. Part of his research was traveling from Jedi Temple to Jedi Temple, all the way from Coruscant to Tython to Ilum, to learn everything he could. His next destination was the Jedi Temple located on Lothal. This was one of the smaller Jedi temples, and was a sanctuary for Force users. It was constructed deep within Lothal's plains, which suggested to Luke it was intended for meditation and connection to the Force, and perhaps a refuge for those seeking enlightenment. Luke sought out the temple, but as he arrived, he couldn't find the entrance. He walked all around the back of the temple, where he found something that stuck out, a painting on the wall, almost a memorial, that was undamaged to aging and time. This was the memorial of the Mortis gods, and Luke had read about them in the Jedi archives. He could sense the temple houses a strong connection to the cosmic and living Force, and decides to reach out to the memorial with the Force, engaging in a deep meditation, and focuses his mind on the questions that he seeks answers for. How should he guide the new generation of Jedi? How should his order be different? And he feels something change around him as he opens his eyes to see the memorial is now changing. The hand of the father, son and daughter begin to point to the little wolves at their feet, who start to howl and walk in the direction that the hands are pointing. Luke follows their direction as they start to walk in a circle, and in the center, the solid rock distorts into what looks like a cosmic jelly. Luke can feel they've created a gateway of some sort, an entrance, and reaches his hand in and lets the Force guide him as he passes right through the gateway. He feels a current run through his hand. A bolt of lightning travels through him as he travels for what feels like an eternity, as he finally falls down on the mystical platform below. He looks down to see the space infinitely below, yet somehow it supports his weight. He looked out as there are a series of platforms, similar to the one he was currently standing on. He closed his eyes, and with the Force, reached out, as he could hear voices from his past all around him, but also voices he couldn't recognize, no doubt involving his future. He thinks to himself, what is this place? There's no way that the Jedi who regularly visited the Lothal Temple came to this domain. This was outside the world in which they normally lived in,
world between
and it
worlds.
clicked for Luke. Could this be the world between worlds?
It is.
A domain which granted those inside it the power over time? He read about it and deemed it a myth. Surely no such world could exist. He begins walking around as portals open up all around. Some showing images of his past, but many showing images of events that he's never seen before. Voices continued to echo, some he recognized, but many foreign to him. Eventually a portal catches his eye, the Jedi Council chamber, in which he has stood many times, but to him it was completely empty, a broken shell of what it must have been. But in front of him, through the portal, he sees the council chamber in its full glory, with the entire council in session, most likely during the Clone War, with all 12 masters, strong in the Force. He looked around, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and they were the only two masters he recognized, but no doubt, there were others he would know by name and not face. Even in this domain, he could sense the power emanating from this room. He thinks to himself, how did these masters allow Palpatine to rise to power at the height of the Jedi's strength? But this is a thought for another time. He starts to think on why he's been permitted into this domain. It must be to change the events of the past. Why else would the Force grant him this opportunity? He looks at the portal one last time, and with a nod of determination, he walks straight through, as a wave of energy passes through
I can imagine how the council's got a meeting and then suddenly Luke just drops out of nowhere
through him, and he's teleported inside to stand in the center of the Jedi Council chamber, approximately 2 years into the Clone War, as Yoda stops what he's saying, as all the 12 masters all look at Luke in shock. The being who's just teleported in front of them. Luke looks around at every master, turning in a circle. He can feel them all reach out with the Force to assess who he is, but also his connection to the Force. The Jedi Masters are confused. They can sense Luke is strong in the Force, no doubt the level of a Jedi Master, and would have the power sufficient enough to sit on this very council. But who is he, and how did he teleport into this chamber? Windu breaks the silence and speaks first, asking Luke who he is.
Who are you, bro?
And Luke turns to him, concluding that this must be the powerful and stern Mace Windu, and Luke simply introduces himself by his first name.
Luke.
He knows his father, Anakin Skywalker, is a well-known Jedi, so decides to keep his last name hidden for now. Luke decides how much to tell them, but knows if they're to trust him, he must reveal the truth. Luke tells them all he's a Jedi from the future, that he's unsure of how he traveled to this era, but he has knowledge of things to come, and will share the fate of the Jedi with them. The council members look around in confusion. They can sense he's a powerful Jedi, but not one they recognize. Could he be telling them the truth? They can't sense any deception in his tone. The Jedi Masters continue to stare at Luke as Mace Windu motioned for them to remain silent, as his gaze locked on Luke, which gestured for him to continue. He spoke of a future that he came from, a future where the Jedi Order had been decimated, nearly wiped out in a tragic event known as the Great Purge. The galaxy was consumed by the rise of the Sith, led by the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, who manipulated his way into power. The Jedi Masters exchanged wary glances, trying to process the weight of what Luke was saying. Windu speaks up, questioning how Luke could know all of this, who tells the Master that for Luke it is the past, it has already happened, and only 2 Jedi in this very room survive it, as he glances towards Yoda and Obi-Wan. Yoda speaks next, telling Luke that they don't require details about the future, but rather knowledge of the dark future that he's told them about. Luke stood tall, not knowing whether what he's going to say next is the right path, but knows he has to try. He tells the council that one Jedi in the Order is heavily related to the fall of the Jedi and rise of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker. The room fell silent. The name Anakin Skywalker carried immense weight amongst the Jedi. Anakin had been a hero, a legendary warrior, and symbol of the Jedi's strength. The council members knew Anakin, being the chosen one, would no doubt relate him to the Sith, but Luke's wording, the way he described Anakin to the rise of the Sith, was concerning. Yoda speaks next, asking Luke if he'll reveal more to them if Anakin joins them, and Luke agrees, selfishly. Anakin enters the chamber, only an hour later, and stands next to Luke in the center, and is told everything Luke has mentioned. Luke greets his father for the first time, and meeting him here is almost emotionally overwhelming for him, but he's trained for this, and will accept his emotions.
Imagine if he just slipped up and said hello father or something.
And not let them consume him. Luke took a deep breath in, before delivering the revelation that he knew would shatter the council. He turned towards the Masters, and informed the council that Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord who was responsible for the galaxy's descent into darkness, was none other than Chancellor Palpatine. Luke explained how Palpatine orchestrated the Clone War to weaken the galaxy, manipulate both sides, and ultimately position himself as Chancellor. The council members exchanged uncertain glances, completely taken aback by what Luke has said. Some Masters begin to consider the possibility the Sith were known for their cunning and deception, and for a while now, they've suspected Darth Sidious to be a key member of the Republic Senate. However, others remain skeptical. Anakin's reaction was immediate. He denied the accusation, defending Palpatine as a loyal mentor who has supported him ever since he joined the Jedi Order. The very idea that Palpatine could be a Sith Lord seemed absurd to him. The council's attention shifted to Luke, who sensed their doubt, and he turned back to Anakin. He pointed out the improbability of the Chancellor's close relationship with Anakin, for why would he befriend a 9-year-old boy who happened to be the one prophesied to have the power to bring balance to the Force? It was no coincidence that the most powerful Jedi had been so carefully mentored by Palpatine. Despite Luke's reasoning, Anakin remained unconvinced. He raised the possibility that Luke could be deceiving them, asking whether Luke has provided any definitive proof that he was indeed from the future. The council members,
bro, he literally teleported inside the room, like,
still grappling with Luke's claim, shifted their focus to him, waiting for his response. But Luke hesitated, knowing that what will come out of his mouth next will be a gamble. He turned to Anakin, and calmly suggested that perhaps it was time for Anakin to be honest with the council. Anakin looks at him with his eyebrow raised as Luke continues, pointing out that it might be time he tells the Jedi Council of his wife, Senator Padme.
Oh shit!
Shock encompassed the Senate as Anakin's eyes grew wide. How could Luke know? Maybe he really was from the future.
Oh wow.
Obi-Wan closed his eyes, having always secretly known,
Dropped the
but
bomb.
now the cat was out of the bag. The chamber fell silent after Luke's statement. Windu's eyes turned towards Anakin, questioning if what Luke has revealed is true. Anakin admitted to the Master that yes, he was indeed married to Padme Amidala.
Wow.
Murmurs scattered. Some Jedi Masters exchanged look of shock, whilst others frowned deeply. Anakin had betrayed the Jedi Code, but before anyone could speak, Yoda raised his hand and stated firmly that whilst Anakin's marriage was a matter of concern, it was not their immediate priority. The Sith threat was far greater, and Palpatine needed to be dealt with first. Turning to Luke, he asked that Luke, being a Jedi Master from the future, indicated that the Jedi Order was not completely destroyed, that some Jedi remained, and asked for insight and knowledge on how they can ensure Palpatine's plans didn't come to fruition. Luke took a moment to collect his thoughts. He tells the Council that the Jedi had become too arrogant, losing their way by entangling themselves too deeply with the Senate and Republic. He explained that their roles as protectors of peace and justice had been corrupted.
Interesting.
And they now serve political interests rather than the people of the galaxy, which goes against the very founding principles of the Jedi. He made it clear that to defeat the Sith for good and ensure the survival of the Jedi Order, they must first acknowledge their flaws, and only when change is accepted can they defeat Palpatine. They discuss this more for hours, as they go over the changes needed within the Jedi Order's philosophy, and have come to the same conclusion. Luke has opened their eyes to the fact they are slaves to the Senate, and thus, if they go arrest Palpatine now, they'll be deemed traitors of the Republic. However, there is simply no other way to ensure Palpatine is stopped. He is too entrenched in the Republic.
Yeah, imagine, because they're gonna go in, Palpatine's gonna be like, what the fuck, how do you know?
And if they try any other move on him that isn't as aggressive, he'll simply execute Order 66 before the Jedi can stop him, and they'll be wiped out. They have to accept that the Jedi will be deemed traitors, but only for a time, until all evidence comes out about Palpatine being behind both sides of the war. However, at that point, they would have already been ostracized from the Republic. But Luke tells them this is not a bad thing. Through this, the Jedi can go back to serving the galaxy as a whole, instead of solely the Republic. They make up their minds together. The entire council, plus Luke and Anakin, go to the Chancellor's office and declare to him that he's under arrest. All 14 encircle him, the strongest Jedi in the galaxy.
Oh my god, all 12 Council Masters, Anakin and Luke.
And Palpatine knows he's trapped. He casts Sith lightning, ignites his blades, and tries to cut through them. But it's simply useless.
You're not doing that.
As he's stopped and arrested. The Jedi call for all of their members to return to the temple and declare that the Sith had been captured, and revealed that it was indeed Palpatine, who was Darth Sidious. But with this, they will be deemed traitors. They take hundreds of ships and all of their knowledge from the Jedi archives and relocate to the planet Tython, the site of the first Jedi temples, and occupy those which have been abandoned for thousands of years. In the Senate, the Jedi were deemed traitors since they arrested and captured Palpatine, but now over the following weeks, senators loyal to the Jedi, such as Padme, Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, would present evidence and proof of Palpatine's betrayal, and slowly the opinion of the Jedi would be restored. However, the war was still raging on, and the Jedi did what they could to still be involved. They focused on finding Dooku and Grievous, launching tens of strike teams with this goal, as they knew with their defeat or capture, the war would be over. This took only a couple of weeks with Dooku's capture and Grievous's destruction, which forced the Separatist Senate to engage in surrender talks with the Republic. Let's fast forward 1 month into the future, after the end of the war. The Council is in session in their new chamber on Tython, and Anakin and Luke stand next to each other. They all thank Luke for what he's done for the Jedi, that without him, the Jedi would have been defeated and the Sith risen to power. Luke bows and says he was only doing his duty in the Force, and declares that he must return to his time. The entire council stand and bows to him, as Luke turns to Anakin, puts his hand on his shoulder, and tells him, "Thank you for everything, Father." Luke turns and leaves without saying another word. The council chamber is silent, with every member too stunned to speak, as they all look at Anakin, who could not believe it. The Jedi had forgiven Anakin for his attachment and marriage to Padme, as with Luke's help, they've changed the Jedi Order's principles to allow attachments, but only if the Jedi has control over their emotions regarding the attachment, something they can train themselves to do. Meanwhile, Luke returned to the world between worlds, and found himself back on the mystical platform where his journey had begun. He looked around the swirling portals, now dimming one by one. A faint smile crossed his face, as he realized the Force had granted him a rare gift, the chance to reshape destiny. Returning through the gateway on Lothal, Luke emerged into his time. The Jedi Temple's ruins stood as a silent witness to his return, but the galaxy was not the same. As he reached out with the Force, he felt it. Balance. The darkness that had once clouded the galaxy had diminished, replaced by something new. Luke gazed at the twin moons, rising over the horizon of Lothal. A new hope burned within him, not just for the Jedi, but for the galaxy and his family. His journey wasn't over, and he hoped that the galaxy he had returned to was the one he had helped create. If you enjoyed this video, your thoughts, what if Darth Vader saved Padme with time travel? Or what if...
That was beautiful. That was great. That was an absolutely just great what if. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 for this what if. I really like it. And last one I reacted to was also by Fantasy Folklore, right? It was also a time travel one. And so far I've liked these 2 time travel what ifs from him. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for this one. If I really like it, let me know what you guys think about this what if and what you would rate it out of 10 in the comment section down below. Whether you agree with my 8 out of 10 rating or if you don't, and why.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this reaction, make sure to go subscribe to Fantasy Folklore for more awesome what if content. And do not forget to subscribe to my channel, leave a like, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an upload. Remember, a new Star Wars what if reaction drops every single day. Join our Discord, links in the description, and if you want to support the channel and get exclusive perks, consider joining our Patreon. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video, so drop a comment with feedback or let me know which what if I should react to next. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. This is the way I'm the Force to be with you. Until then, I will see you next time.
Hey, you didn't watch it? Well, check out the video on the left side of the screen, which is specifically recommended for you, or check out the playlist on the right of the screen, which contains similar videos to this one, made by me, of course. Hey, remember, subscribe.